Why don't we know whether the Intelsat 708 incident killed 6 people or 500 people? How did an allergic reaction save 3 lives? This and more as we find out what can go wrong when we try to go where no one has gone before. During the nascent years of the space race, a Soviet military leader's risky mandate led to an unprecedented disaster. Likely to get ahead of the Americans, Chief Marshal Nedelin ordered an acceleration in the development of the R-16 intercontinental ballistic missile. According to Air and Space magazine, he reportedly wanted the team working on it to finish it in time for the Soviet Revolution's 43rd anniversary, which was a staggering 8 months before its original projected launch date. Workers made it their priority to speed up the process, ignoring risks and bypassing crucial safety protocols. Sadly, this included working on a fully fueled missile while it was on the launch pad, a mistake that proved to have lethal consequences on October 24, 1960, when the missile's second stage, still attached to its first stage, suddenly fired, leading to an explosion on the launch pad. This incident claimed the lives of about 100 people working on and around the missile, including Nedelin himself. The investigation was kept hush-hush by the authorities, and the bereaved families were instructed to stay silent. Journalists from Europe sensed that something terrible had happened in Siberia, while the United States obtained low-quality photos of the scorched site through a spy satellite, wrote James Oberg for Air and Space magazine in 1990. It took 2 decades before more details about the tragedy became known to the public. On February 28, 1966, astronauts Elliot C. Jr. and Charles Bassett II boarded a T-38 military training jet. Gemini 9, the 7th crewed flight in the Gemini program, was slated to take place in May that year. What they weren't counting on, however, were the less-than-ideal weather conditions on that fateful day. They had trouble gauging how high they should be flying in order to safely land on Lambert Field in St. Louis, Missouri. In C and Bassett's attempt to land safely on the runway, the training jet accidentally hit the roof of Building 101, aka Gemini Space Operations, which housed the space exploration vehicle. The plane crashed, tumbled, hit a nearby construction yard, and exploded. Both pilots perished. In addition, falling debris from Building 101's ceiling hit about a dozen employees inside. An in-depth investigation on the tragedy took place, led by Alan Shepard, the first American to travel into space, and U.S. Air Force pilot Donald Deke Slayton. 3 months after the incident, the investigation committee concluded that the accident was a combination of terrible weather and a miscalculation on C's part. The graves of the 2 original Gemini 9 crew members are in Arlington National Cemetery. According to NASA, the Apollo Command Module became a highly reliable craft for moon exploration due to crucial revisions in its design. Sadly, these changes were implemented as a result of a tragedy that claimed the lives of the 3 men slated to be on the mission's first manned flight. On January 27, 1967, at 1 p.m., astronauts Roger Chaffee, Gus Grissom, and Ed White participated in a pre-flight training session in the module at Cape Canaveral. It was about a month before their scheduled mission, Apollo 204. During the session, the module was mounted on an unfueled rocket. It probably could have been safe had it not been for 3 problems: a sour smell that Grissom detected in the spacesuit loop, a high oxygen flow indication, and communication line issues. 5.5 hours later, a fire broke out in the cockpit, which subsequent investigations indicate started from a short circuit. The astronauts were trapped inside the module due to a hatch door that was hard to open. Experts say that the men died within the first half-minute of the fire, while sustaining serious burn injuries and inhaling smoke. For about a year and a half, the Apollo program experienced a huge safety upheaval. A new hatch design, better record-keeping of spacecraft repairs and mods, and even replacing the flammable components with self-extinguishing parts. And to honor the 3 astronauts, Apollo 204 was officially named Apollo 1.
America's first 3 Apollo astronauts were trapped and killed by a flash fire that swept their moonship early tonight during a launch pad test.
When Russia launched Soyuz 1 on April 23, 1967, it had a single passenger, Colonel Vladimir Komarov, who had previously served as the commander of the Vauxhall spaceflight mission in 1964. This earned him the distinct honor of being the first cosmonaut to fly into space twice. Tragically, his ill-fated return to Earth bestowed upon him another unforgettable place in history. He became the first person to ever die during an attempt at space travel. Based on Space Safety Magazine's account, Komarov was already aware of problems in the spacecraft almost as soon as it was launched. The issues included a problematic one-panel configuration, a halved power supply due to failure in deploying the left solar panel, and compromised craft stability due to malfunctioning sensors. Once in orbit, Soyuz 1 rapidly started to lose power, so Russia decided to bring the craft back to Earth the next day. Due to Soyuz 1's faulty control system and peculiar shape, Komarov struggled to manually orient the craft during re-entry. Unfortunately, the main parachute to the craft failed to deploy, and what was intended to be a safe landing for the aircraft became a high-speed, head-on collision with the ground. When Soyuz 1 crashed, its solid fuel rockets exploded, obliterating everything in it and killing Colonel Komarov. On November 15, 1967, U.S. Air Force Major Michael James Adams prepared to take his 7th flight in the North American Aviation X-15 hypersonic craft. He would be piloting the jet dubbed X-15-3. According to the NESC Academy, X-15-3 was unique in that it had advanced pilot displays, an adaptive flight control system, and an advanced reaction control system. Since Adams was no stranger to handling the plane, X-15 Flight 365-97, aka X-15 Flight 191, was expected to be a safe one for him. Sadly, this was not the case. The engine ended up running for just 3.3 seconds longer than the initial flight plan, causing the plane to fly slightly faster than intended and overshoot its projected altitude. Worse, X-15-3 experienced a malfunction in its inertial flight data system, causing it to improperly execute Adams' controls and go into a spin upon descending to 230,000 feet. The plane subsequently crashed in a remote area about 5.5 miles from Randsburg, California. Adams did not survive. NASA's investigation revealed that an electrical disturbance was the cause of the accident, and because Adams' flight had actually surpassed 50 miles of altitude, he posthumously received the United States Astronaut Badge, an award given to individuals who have successfully conducted a spaceflight. A pollen allergy saved the lives of 3 men and doomed 3 others to go down in history as the first and to date only humans to die while in outer space. According to Astronomy magazine, when doctors suspected that cosmonaut Valery Kubasov had tuberculosis, he and his crewmates Pyotr Kulydin and Alexei Leonov were taken off the Soyuz 11 mission 3 days before their flight. A backup crew filled in for them, composed of Georgy Dobrovolsky, Vladislav Volkov, and Viktor Patsayev. The launch took place on June 6, 1971. What followed were 3 weeks of experiments on board the first space station, Salyut 1. However, tragedy struck on June 30th before the crew was able to return to Earth. During preparations for atmospheric re-entry, a leak in the spacecraft caused sudden decompression, killing all 3 crew members in less than 2 minutes. As tragic as their fates were, the 3 cosmonauts did not die in vain. Their deaths made both Americans and Russians realize the true dangers of space travel. They also prompted the implementation of better safety features in later Soyuz crafts. Initially designed to be a high-fidelity structural test article, Space Shuttle Challenger was used in 9 crucial missions from 1983 to 1986, including the Space Shuttle program's first spacewalk, the launch of the first American woman, Sally Ride, and first African-American, Guy Bluford, into space, and the first Space Shuttle landing at Kennedy Space Center. Challenger's 10th launch, scheduled on January 28, 1986, was meant to make history once more. Its 7-person crew included Krista McAuliffe, who would have been the first teacher to go into space. Unfortunately, tragedy struck 73 seconds after the shuttle's launch. As Space.com recounts, Challenger broke up and exploded as the world watched in horror. It took several weeks to recover the astronauts' remains, some of which could not be identified.
I thought the flight was going fine. And then I heard them say, major malfunction. And then the person beside me said it's exploded.
An investigation revealed that the below-freezing temperatures that day degraded a rubber seal on the solid rocket boosters, and that the Challenger disaster could have been avoided if NASA had picked a different day for the launch. This exposed shortcomings in NASA's safety protocols and its unsustainable launch rate, prompting the agency to make serious technical and operational changes. A 2014 paper published in Colorado Law Review shares some details about the failed launch of the Intelsat 708, a telecommunications satellite created by Space Systems/Loral. On February 15, 1996, the Long March 3B rocket carrying the satellite was launched from China's Xicheng Satellite Launch Center. Unfortunately, the rocket tipped over, veering off course for 22 seconds before crashing. Experts say it likely hit a nearby hillside village. At least 6 people were killed in the incident and 57 were injured, the Chinese government's Xinhua news agency reported. However, U.S. experts say that the accident may have actually killed 300 to 500 people based on population estimates and the crowd that gathered near the crash site the previous night. A subsequent investigation revealed that the Long March 3B's guidance system was faulty. Technical improvements were made to increase the rocket's reliability. To this day, the actual death toll of this incident remains uncertain. Columbia made history on April 12, 1981, as the first space shuttle to actually fly in outer space. For over 2 decades, it completed important research, construction, and satellite deployment missions. Sadly, the research-dedicated STS-107 mission became its final flight, one that was doomed from the start by a piece of foam. On January 16, 2003, approximately 82 seconds after Columbia's liftoff, a foam ramp described as being the size of a briefcase fell from the shuttle's external tank. It struck the vehicle's left wing, damaging its protective heat shielding. Mission managers decided that repairing the wing was near impossible at this point and did not inform the crew about it. When Space Shuttle Columbia returned to Earth on February 1, 2003, it broke apart upon re-entry due to the heat. None of the astronauts survived. Space shuttle flights ceased for over 2 years while an investigation board looked into the tragedy. Shockingly, it revealed that NASA had known about the foam problem for years, earning the agency harsh criticism and backlash. The board concluded that sending another orbiter into space to save the crew would have been an option, albeit an equally risky one. The Space Shuttle program was terminated in 2011. Nowadays, space taxi services fly astronauts up to the International Space Station. Prior to 2003, the Brazilian Space Agency had tried to launch a rocket into space 2 times, once in 1997 and again in 1999. However, both missions ended in failure as technical problems doomed the rockets right after liftoff. On August 22, 2003, the agency conducted a 3rd launch at the Alcantara Launch Center, aimed to send its VLS-1 rocket into space with 2 small satellites as its payload. However, during some final pre-launch tests, an unintended ignition of propellant in one of the rocket's 4 engines caused it to explode on its launch pad, resulting in at least 21 casualties, most of whom were civilian technicians, and 20 injuries. The base's deputy director died in the explosion, along with 10 mid-level technicians and 11 experts from the Center for Aeronautical Technology.